I'm going to show you how to make the scientifically perfect soup to get the best blood sugar you've ever seen in your life. This isn't a light soup or a diet soup, and it's definitely not a low-carb soup. This is a therapeutic, metabolism-repairing meal. It's made from simple, whole foods. It's warm, comforting, and incredibly satisfying. And every ingredient in this soup is here for one reason: to improve insulin sensitivity and lower blood sugar at the root cause. And here's the best part: every single ingredient in this soup is backed by real research showing improvements in insulin sensitivity, fasting glucose, liver glucose output, and A1C levels. I'll show you exactly how to build it, explain the science behind each ingredient, and by the end, you'll have a soup you can make at home that doesn't just manage blood sugar, it helps reverse insulin resistance, the root problem behind high blood sugar levels. Quick heads up, if you want the full step-by-step plan to reverse insulin resistance beyond one meal, we have a free Mastering Diabetes training where we break down the lifestyle habits that you need to follow to get rid of diabetes for good. Comment training below and we'll send you a link to register for the free masterclass. Okay, let's get started with the foundation. First, let me tell you why this soup is going to be a therapeutic mix of foods that lower blood sugar levels. When it comes to lowering blood sugar, everything begins with one thing: insulin sensitivity. Insulin sensitivity is how easily your cells can pull glucose out of your bloodstream and use it for energy. Think of insulin as a key and your cells as locks. You want glucose, the scientific term for sugar in your bloodstream, to move into your cells. When your cells are clean and healthy, the key turns easily. Glucose flows in, blood sugar stays stable throughout the whole day. But when excess fat builds up inside muscle and liver cells, that lock gets jammed. This is insulin resistance. Even though insulin is present, it can't do its job. So glucose stays stuck in the bloodstream and sugar remains high. The goal is to clean those locks. And one of the fastest ways to do this is through low-fat, fiber-rich, whole food meals. That's exactly what this soup is designed to do. So let's dive in. Step 1, the cruciferous base. Start with broccoli, a lot of broccoli. Broccoli is one of the most powerful vegetables you can eat for metabolic health. Not because it's low calorie, not because it's low carb, but because it contains a compound called sulforaphane. Sulforaphane is one of the most extensively studied bioactive compounds in nutrition science when it comes to insulin sensitivity and glucose regulation. And this matters because insulin resistance is not just a blood sugar problem, it's a cellular signaling problem. Recent mechanistic research shows that sulforaphane works at the cellular level by activating a pathway called NRF2, a master regulator of antioxidant defense and metabolic health. When NRF2 is activated, several things happen at once. First, oxidative stress inside the cell drops. And oxidative stress is one of the main reasons insulin signaling gets impaired in the first place. When cells are under oxidative stress, insulin receptors don't respond properly. The signal gets distorted. Glucose stays stuck in the bloodstream. Sulforaphane helps calm that environment. Second, sulforaphane improves insulin signaling pathways directly. Research shows it enhances the ability of insulin to activate downstream signaling inside muscle and liver cells, meaning glucose transporters respond more effectively when insulin is present. In other words, the insulin you already have starts working better. Third, and this is huge, sulforaphane directly impacts the liver. The liver plays a massive role in fasting blood sugar because it releases glucose into the bloodstream, especially overnight and between meals. Sulforaphane doesn't just support health in a vague way. It directly targets one of the biggest drivers of high blood sugar, your liver. Your liver controls fasting blood sugar by deciding how much glucose to release into the bloodstream, especially overnight and between meals. Research shows that sulforaphane suppresses the genes involved in hepatic gluconeogenesis, the process by which the liver makes and releases new glucose. When the liver produces less glucose, several things happen automatically. Fasting blood sugar drops, less glucose floods the bloodstream, and your body needs less insulin to keep blood sugar stable. This is why sulforaphane is especially powerful for people who struggle with high fasting glucose, the dawn phenomenon, and stubborn morning blood sugar numbers. And this isn't just theory. Human research shows that increasing intake of cruciferous vegetables like broccoli is associated with improved insulin sensitivity, lower fasting glucose, and better markers of metabolic health. Importantly, these improvements are not dependent on weight loss. That tells us something critical. This isn't about calories. It's not about restriction. It's about cellular repair. So when broccoli becomes the base of your soup, you're not just adding volume or fiber. You're delivering a compound that reduces oxidative stress inside cells, restores insulin signaling, and tells your liver to stop overproducing glucose. You are quite literally sending a signal to your liver and muscle cells. It's safe to respond to insulin again. And that's why broccoli isn't just another vegetable in this recipe. It's the metabolic foundation. Step 2, the fiber-first vegetables. Next, we layer in onions, garlic, and parsnips. These aren't just flavor builders. They're fiber-rich, low-fat vegetables that change how your body handles glucose after a meal. That matters because insulin resistance isn't just about blood sugar numbers. It's about how quickly glucose enters your bloodstream and how smoothly your cells respond to it. When you slow digestion and improve the metabolic response, you get lower peaks, smoother curves, and less stress on your pancreas. On top of that, some vegetables contain compounds that actively improve insulin sensitivity and glucose metabolism. Let's start with garlic. Garlic isn't just aromatic. It contains bioactive compounds that interact with your metabolism in meaningful ways. In a randomized human clinical trial, adults with impaired glucose tolerance consumed garlic extract over a period of several weeks. At the end of the study, the garlic group showed significantly lower fasting blood glucose, improved glucose tolerance, and enhanced insulin sensitivity compared to baseline and to the control group. This tells us something important. The compounds in garlic, especially when consumed regularly as part of a meal, can improve how your body responds to insulin, reduce the magnitude of post-meal glucose rises, and help your cells handle carbohydrates more efficiently. And this happens in real people, not just in animals or theoretical models. Now, let's talk about onions. Onions are rich in flavonoids, especially quercetin, and related compounds that have been shown to influence multiple aspects of metabolic health. Clinical research shows that onion consumption is associated with improvements in lipid profiles, reductions in markers of oxidative stress, and positive changes in pathways linked to insulin action and glucose metabolism. In other words, onions don't just add sweetness and depth to your soup. They deliver compounds that help your cells process glucose more efficiently and respond to insulin more effectively. And then there's fiber itself from onions, parsnips, and every non-starchy vegetable in this soup. Fiber slows the rate at which glucose enters your bloodstream. Instead of a fast spike, you get a gradual rise, lower peaks, and a faster return to baseline. That makes it easier for insulin to keep up. And over time, it reduces the overall demand on your pancreas. Large human studies consistently show that adults who eat more dietary fiber from vegetables have better insulin sensitivity, lower post-meal glucose spikes, and significantly reduced risk of developing type 2 diabetes. This is why sequencing matters. The first layer of vegetables in your soup isn't just texture and flavor. It's the metabolic foundation. Together, these fiber-first vegetables slow digestion, improve insulin response, and support smoother, more stable blood sugar curves, all while keeping fat low so insulin can do its job instead of being blocked. And that's the metabolic magic built right into this soup. Step 3, the whole food carbohydrates. Now, let's talk about the part that scares most people, potatoes. Yes, this soup contains potatoes. And if potatoes spike your blood sugar right now, that does not mean potatoes are bad. It means you're currently living with insulin resistance. The potatoes are revealing the problem. They're not causing it. When insulin sensitivity is impaired, carbohydrates look unpredictable. They look dangerous. They look like the enemy. But when insulin sensitivity improves, carbohydrates behave very differently. And that's where context matters. When potatoes are eaten inside a low-fat, high fiber environment, like this soup, they don't hit your bloodstream all at once. They become slow digesting, stable, and metabolically restorative. Potatoes are rich in potassium, fiber, and something called resistant starch. Resistant starch is special because your body doesn't digest it like regular starch. Instead of being absorbed quickly, it travels to your large intestine. There, it feeds beneficial gut bacteria. And when those bacteria ferment resistant starch, they produce compounds called short-chain fatty acids. These aren't just gut health compounds. They're metabolic signaling molecules. Research shows that short-chain fatty acids improve insulin sensitivity by helping muscle cells pull glucose out of the bloodstream more effectively. They reduce inflammation that interferes with insulin signaling. They improve how muscle cells burn glucose for energy. In other words, they help your muscles respond to insulin again. And that's critical because muscle is the largest glucose sink in your entire body. When muscle cells are insulin resistant, glucose stays stuck in your bloodstream. But when insulin sensitivity improves, glucose gets pulled out of the blood and used for fuel. Over time, meals built this way help clear excess fat out of muscle cells, one of the root causes of insulin resistance. And when that fat clears, carbohydrates stop spiking you. They stop feeling scary. They start doing what they were always meant to do. They fuel your cells. That's why potatoes don't need to be avoided. They need to be placed correctly inside meals that are low in fat, rich in fiber, and designed to improve insulin sensitivity. And that's exactly what this soup does. Step 4, the anti-inflammatory add-ins. Next, we add red bell pepper and spices. These might look like small additions, but metabolically, they do a lot of heavy lifting. Let's start with red bell peppers. Red bell peppers are one of the richest sources of dietary carotenoids, plant compounds that act as powerful antioxidants inside the body. Carotenoids don't just support health in a vague way. They directly reduce oxidative stress inside cells. And oxidative stress is one of the main reasons insulin stops working properly. When cells are under constant oxidative stress, insulin receptors don't respond efficiently. The signal gets weaker. Glucose has a harder time getting into the cell. Research shows that higher carotenoid intake is associated with improved insulin sensitivity, lower markers of inflammation, and better glucose metabolism. The reason is because carotenoids help stabilize the cellular environment insulin depends on to do its job. This is an important shift in how to think about blood sugar. Chronic high blood sugar isn't just a glucose problem, it's an inflammatory problem. And antioxidant-rich vegetables, like red bell peppers, help calm that inflammation at the cellular level. Not instantly, not magically, but consistently, meal after meal. Now let's talk about the spices, specifically cayenne pepper. Cayenne contains a compound called capsaicin. Capsaicin has been shown to influence glucose metabolism and insulin sensitivity through multiple pathways. It helps reduce low-grade inflammation, it improves glucose uptake in muscle cells, and it can enhance insulin signaling by activating pathways involved in cellular energy use. Research shows that capsaicin can increase glucose utilization in peripheral tissues, meaning muscle cells become better at pulling glucose out of the bloodstream and using it for fuel. And when muscles are using glucose efficiently, blood sugar naturally comes down. This is why spices matter. They're not just flavor, they're metabolic amplifiers. They take an already low-fat, high-fiber meal and push it one step further by reducing inflammation, improving insulin signaling, and supporting glucose clearance from the bloodstream. So when you add red bell peppers and spices to this soup, you're not just making it taste better, you're creating a cellular environment where insulin can finally do its job. And that's how blood sugar starts to stabilize, not through restriction, but through repair. Step 5, the creamy component without the fat load. Now, let's make it creamy, but without cream. This soup uses unsweetened almond milk and nutritional yeast. This is critical. Traditional creamy soups rely on heavy cream, butter, oil, and even small amounts of added fat can temporarily block insulin's ability to move glucose into muscle cells. That's why this soup stays low fat. Nutritional yeast adds savory depth, B vitamins, and satisfaction without interfering with insulin signaling. This is how you get comfort food and metabolic repair at the same time. So why does this work so well for blood sugar? Here's something most people don't realize. Soup itself has a metabolic advantage, not because it's liquid, not because it's low calorie, but because of how it moves through your digestive system. This soup is hydrating, fiber rich, and low in fat. That combination slows gastric emptying, meaning food leaves your stomach more gradually. And when food enters your small intestine more slowly, glucose enters your bloodstream more gradually too. That gives insulin time to work, which means smaller post-meal spikes, a faster return to baseline, and steadier energy after eating. This is especially powerful for people who struggle with high fasting glucose, the dawn phenomenon, and post-meal crashes. So it's not just what you're eating, it's how this meal behaves once it's inside your body. And soup does that extremely well. Now, let's zoom out and put the whole picture together. You saute the aromatics, add the vegetables, simmer until tender, blend until creamy. That's it. You now have a scientifically designed soup that supports insulin sensitivity from multiple angles at the same time. Here's what's happening inside your body when you eat it. Broccoli helps reduce excessive glucose production by the liver. Fiber slows how quickly glucose enters the bloodstream. Potatoes provide stable, slow-burning energy instead of spikes. Antioxidants calm oxidative stress that interferes with insulin signaling. And the low-fat structure allows insulin to actually do its job. This is food as medicine. Have this soup for lunch or dinner 3 days in a row. Check your glucose before eating, 1 hour after, and 2 hours after. You'll likely notice smaller post-meal peaks, faster recovery, and more stable energy. That's what improving insulin sensitivity feels like. And over time, you'll be able to eat more carbohydrates, use less medication, and get better numbers. Not because you restricted harder, but because you fixed the root cause. This is exactly what we teach inside our free Mastering Diabetes training. How to structure meals, sequence foods, and use whole food nutrition so every cell in your body becomes a glucose-burning machine. If you want the full step-by-step plan, comment training below and we'll send it to you. If this video helped you, hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, and share it with someone who loves a good bowl of soup. Until next time, keep those carbs high and that A1C low.